I know that the social media burnout is real, and also
Yeah.
like there's like this conversation of like algorithm dependency and like what the algorithm necessarily likes too. But I think just the simple act of giving yourself time to do that and showing up for yourself, and also just like giving yourself some slack of like a, hey, I made something like that resonates with me, that tells my experience, like I should probably do the due diligence of like, of convincing others that they will love it just the way I believe it in myself. I think if you just
Mhm.
show up for that and do it, and it could look like however big or however small it is. I think the most important thing that is if you do it in a way that's authentic to yourself and
Mhm.
just do the damn thing.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business. The book, third edition, is out now. Hardcover, ebook, audiobook, however you like books, you can find it everywhere. Today, my guest is Michael Seyer. An LA-based independent artist, just released a new album called Boylife. It's super vibey. You should check it out. It's kind of like this dream pop blend of indie folk, bittersweet, nostalgic, gorgeous record. Go listen to it. Today we talk about making that album, the music videos that he made. He made a music video in Japan, kind of talked about all of this. All self-funding, completely independent. He releases through DistroKid. He has hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners on Spotify alone, tens of millions of views, and he's about to embark on a 25-day North American tour. And then after that, he's going to hit spots all over Asia. So he's doing the thing. And as a working artist, we really kind of dig into all of it, from the creation process, his approach, and then later on, we talk about the rollout, and he's starting a new record label called Seyerland Records, and starting to bring on artists to his own record label, and kind of talks about creating the album rollout and the world and the marketing around it. And we get into how not fun it is to talk about things that are not cool or not fun to talk about for artists, which is the marketing and the rollout and the aesthetic and all the things that we don't really want to do, but we kind of have to. And so we get into that towards the end. He gives a lot of great insight into how to approach that, and especially for those that really hate thinking about all of that stuff. That's really not the music making part of our jobs that we really don't really want to think about, but is a necessary part of the job. You can find Michael Seyer anywhere online. Go check out the album anywhere you listen to music. Again, that's Boylife. Find him on Instagram or TikTok, or visit his website, get on his email list. But most importantly, get out to a show. If he's passing through your town, go to a show, say hi to him, say you heard him on the pod. You can find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on the socials. Find me at Ari Herstand on Instagram. But right now, most importantly, pause this, visit aristake.com and get on the email list. The email list is the best place to stay in touch with us. That's how we can tell you all about new episodes that we have, the most important stuff about the new music business we send to our email list. And if you wouldn't mind, while this is paused, give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or however you're listening to this. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment. You can leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube. I look at both of those. And hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button if you want more of our episodes to show up in your feeds. All right, let's kick into the show. Michael Seyer, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ari, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, first off, congratulations on the new album, Boylife. It's super vibey. I've been playing it quite a bit, and it's just like, it's one of those albums that you can go start to finish, no skips, and you just ride the wave throughout the day, and it's really it's great, and it's really well done on that.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm a big album guy, so I love I love making music. I love
Yeah.
making albums. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, and I'm curious if there was a different approach for this album versus previous ones. I know that you teamed up with Christian Taylor and Connor West on a few, and I'm curious just kind of the approach on this album maybe versus how you've approached the previous ones.
Yeah. So I mean, just for context, like I kind of like started making music just completely myself. I didn't really have much of a catalog when I first put out my first album as Michael Seyer,
Mhm.
of course. And then I just kind of like threw it on. I at the time I was like just doing internet kind of music, mostly like hip hop oriented. And then
Oh,
yeah,
what's
that's kind of like,
internet music? I don't know what that means.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's so like the first thing I ever uploaded was a whole beat tape
Okay.
of Minecraft. Like I took the Minecraft soundtrack and I flipped it and made
Like
it
the
like,
video game Minecraft.
yes, the video game. Yeah, and that's
It,
very internet oriented.
okay, so
Yeah.
this is like meme culture of 2014 or something, or
Yeah. And I would just put it on like it was like just for me, and
okay,
I put it onto like internet forums. It wasn't like,
got it.
yeah, there was no
Okay,
expectation, really no foundation or whatever. But yeah, that was kind of doing that, and then some like more local uh, projects with some friends, just kind of like making music for fun. And then I got really interested because I've always played instruments to do something a little more live performance oriented.
hmm,
Um, and I kind of did that, and then my next few albums followed that kind of trajectory. Um, but it was usually only recorded like by myself and maybe some close friends that are collaborators.
sure.
So I did that for a few albums, and then I guess for this time around, like doing music so long, you want to constantly engage yourself in like, how can I do something different to keep myself entertained and invested, because
Mm,
you kind of need to remind yourself that every time. And typically I would say that's by doing new things, because new things like keep you entertained and engaged.
hmm,
So I kind of approached my managers and was like, I want to you know try to work with like a producer in whatever way that felt naturally, and whether that's like full-time co-producer or like
hmm,
you know collaborative, more so than my past projects. And I ended up doing a session with Christian Taylor, who's amazing, talented musician, great
hmm,
music. Check his music out. And I think like we had a few producers lined up that we were kind of like trying to do sessions to feel out. And we did our first session, and I really enjoyed it. So I just was like, let's just have him on. But he's really young, I mean, I'm 30,
hmm,
and like that might not seem super old, but like it being 30, equips you with some sort of like, musical baggage in some way, where like you've been doing it for so long that sometimes you think word is law, and that's kind of like a fallacy in music. So working with someone really young kind of like was very instructive in a way that like moved me out of my typical mind frame, and considered certain things that I would not consider. And yeah, when you're super young and making music, you just there's no rules, and you just do
mm,
things purely for uh just the pleasure of sound, and
yeah,
tapping into that from someone else and interfacing with them in some way
yeah,
was really helpful, especially in an album that like was very the recurring themes are like youth and maturity,
mm, yeah. What? So tell me about that process when you get together with Christian. Did you come together to co-write initially, or did you bring fully written songs to him, and then you kind of worked on how you're going to go approach the production together?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a hybrid.
Okay.
So It really depended on the song. Some songs we wrote in the studio, which was like the studio in Burbank called Heavy Duty Studios. And then some songs I have my own home studio here. And yeah, some songs I demoed and drafted here, and then I brought to him, and then he'd add his flair. Some songs were like, almost completely done, and then he would just kind of like do some more kind of life quality touches in some way. And some songs were absolutely so fetal that it really needed his like a growth in it, but yeah, we kind of like wavered between a whole spectrum of ways to do it, which I enjoyed the whole process of doing that, because I'm so used to like just doing a lot of it myself. It was really refreshing. And also, yeah, it just achieved that goal of like making me understand why I love music, and continually trying to find a reminder of why you do music.
Yeah, that's important to be reminded of, and to have something that can maybe jolt you out of monotony, or a space where there isn't as much inspiration as you'd like there to be. And we need those constant reminders of why we fell in love with music, and to just kind of have. And sometimes it just takes bringing in a new person, or a new collaborator, or someone fresh, just to kind of see things from a different perspective. Or maybe his youth, he hasn't been as corrupted by the industry, and so he's still bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, every album, that's like, obviously this is the challenge of like making the album, but like for me, I usually sum up making the album of like a goal of reminding yourself the reasons why you're in love with music. And hopping back into it might take whatever time it takes. It's always on its own timetable, but if you push through it enough, you'll find the reasons. And I definitely fell in love making this album. I fell in love with making music again, which is super important.
That's great. And I noticed he's a drummer as well. And it seems like you play all the other instruments for the most part. I know you brought in a couple collaborators here and there. But how was that approach, working with a drummer who actually then tracked the drums on the record, and then you could kind of do the rest?
I've like worked with a spectrum of like musicians and producers, and I don't know if this is like super generalizing, but I kind of think that drummer producers are the goats, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of the goats. Like the guitar producer, very cool. Piano producer, super cool, like compositionally, like that's it's the composer's instrument. But like there's something about like rhythm section producers, like drummer, bassist, like they just have this thing that I'm like, my experience tells me that they kind of, for me, I can only speak for my experience, but they are the goats.
No, I feel that. Drummers can approach things in a different way, and always keep the pocket in mind. When maybe it gets a little floaty or flighty off in a direction or something, and drummers can hold that foundation down. That's nice. So cool. That's great. And I noticed this is, I mean, it's all kind of self-released, right? I mean, there's no label. I know you have your own label, Seyerland, that I do want to talk about a bit, but I think have all your albums been released independently?
More or less, yes. It's all pretty independently. I mean, it goes as far back as super independent, where I'm just like, I have no idea how things work, so I just throw it up on Bandcamp, and then it just takes a life of its own. And as opposed to like, we've done like licensing deals strictly, and then, but it always like comes back to me in some form. And I don't know if that's like by design, but it's the only way I know how to do it, and I really wouldn't have it any other way.
So tell me about the difference between like throwing it up on Bandcamp initially. I'm assuming that was kind of your first record, Ugly Boy, back in like 2016 or something.
Yeah.
Versus, and then you mentioned licensing deals. Like, who did you team up with, and for which projects for licensing?
Yeah. So my very first, my most formative experience was like, when I just threw it on Bandcamp. I don't even think it. I originally threw it on like Bandcamp and maybe SoundCloud, like
Yeah,
purely for me and my friends, like in
yeah.
2015, and then
Hmm.
like maybe Spotify wasn't. It was there, but it wasn't necessarily in the zeitgeist, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah,
And
SoundCloud was pretty hot back then, and Bandcamp. I mean, both Bandcamp and
yeah, yeah,
SoundCloud. That, especially in like the indie underground DIY scene, it was SoundCloud and
yeah.
Bandcamp. That was it.
Yeah, what's funny is like I remember because I saw my friend, he's like from Canada, and he came down to Los Angeles the other, like maybe a few months ago.
Mhm.
And I remember at the time, we were like musician friends online, and then this was 2015, and like I remember he sent me a message on SoundCloud, and he was like, "Yo, have you heard about this Spotify thing?" Like, and I was like, "No," I was like, "No, I've
Yeah.
never heard of it." And he's like, "Yo, you got to release your music on here." And I remember at the time like having the time frame like, I don't know, but
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's
obviously it
funny.
was like the best move possible, because it's just
Mhm.
like so in our, like it's in the culture, like
Yeah.
so ingrained, and yeah. But I just, it's so funny thinking that I was in that mind frame of
Mhm.
like just being like a old man yelling at the cloud, like I didn't understand it at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I had that in 2015 where I just threw it in Bandcamp, and then I actually, it was just for me and my friends. And then when maybe just like a few people reached out to me, and I started to see that, like there was like strangers that were interested in it. I then threw it a year later onto SoundCloud, and then maybe my next album, which was Bad Bones, I just completely self-released as well. And then I did a few EPs. We did some licensing deals with like Virgin Records.
Mm.
Um,
What so tell me about that experience and why you decided to work with them, to release it.
yeah, I mean, I think I was just fresh off getting some managers, and
Okay.
and it was a new terrain for me because
Mhm.
I was just super self-independent. I mean, I'm still self-independent even with my managers today, but like,
Right.
it was even more so back then, where it's like I didn't even have like a manager before.
Yeah.
So we were just trying out different things and seeing what worked. And yeah, it's like kind of like that same thing with continuing to do new things to like
Mhm.
entertain yourself and just like see what comes out of it.
Mhm.
So that, like when we're putting out one EP, I was like, oh, let's try something new, and
Mhm.
they suggested, oh, we can do something in terms of just a licensing agreement where it's like, 1 year on their distribution, and then, like they take a percentage, and then after a year it redigests into my kind of DSP or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I did that with Virgin, and then I did that with a few, like one other place. I forget what it was, but
I mean, that's really fascinating just to, that Virgin, because Virgin Records is it's a well-known label, and it's a major under, I forget who it's under. I have to look at, but it that they would do a one under, I think it's under UMG. Yeah. Um they would do a 1-year licensing deal, which seems incredibly short. I mean, most licensing deals with major labels are like 12 to 16 years or something like that, and less if you have more clout or something like that. So that's really fascinating. And was it part of a? I mean, yeah, I don't know if, I mean, how deep you want to get into it, but I haven't heard of something like that before.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I and to be fair, I haven't either, because I'm just sometimes sometimes I'm just kind of operating on vibes, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
sure. Hey, works out.
yeah, I don't know, that might have been to the credit of my managers.
Yeah.
I don't really know the subtleties of it, but in
Yeah,
short, I was like really open to it because
sure.
like I've always wanted to be just fiercely independent, just
Yeah.
coming from like my background, as well as like a lot of people that have imparted some knowledge to me in some way. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure and I can't remember, I'm sure at the time they probably passed the scenario of like licensing it for a few years, but like I probably wanted it really fast back into my catalog,
Right. Yeah.
and I enjoyed doing it too, because it is refreshing to understand like new ways to approach something. So,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it in a range of ways, like I saw certain things that they did, that was like, oh, this is very cool, like getting because during that release we had a vinyl run, and we usually always do a vinyl run like for each
Nice.
project. And usually I always take the vinyls and like have it as like something for the live shows, to
Mm-hmm.
so kind of like incentivize people coming out, because people just fucking love vinyls even if they don't have
Right,
vinyl
right, right,
players,
right. Yeah.
and but yeah, we had like some vinyl to like allocate for them at Virgin, and they're able to put us in like places that I was like, oh, this is pretty cool that we're you could buy
Yeah.
it online in Target. That's kind of sick, like I can.
Right. So I mean, this record, I think I saw a photo of you holding the vinyl for the new album. Is that you made vinyl for this one too, and you got a big tour coming up? I'm assuming that you
Yeah,
made vinyl
yeah,
for Boylife as well.
we did. Yeah, this is our
Nice.
first time doing a gatefold, so it's like a book.
Oh,
So
nice. Very
yeah,
cool. And so so now that you're like totally independent and you release, so who did you release, like distribute the album to DSPs through this time?
just DistroKid.
DistroKid.
Yeah,
Yeah, right on. And so then I'm assuming you made the vinyl yourself, kind of you went to the printing presses and you just kind of did it all DIY.
yeah. I mean,
Nice.
we've worked with like like God knows how many like vinyl people,
Right.
probably like within the several, just always trying to find like the lowest overhead, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But like not trying to find a medium between that and like something that is just
Quality.
still feels quality.
Right.
So yeah, we do that almost every time for every album,
Nice.
and we are doing it for this album. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So and I see you got a big tour coming up. And is this how does this tour how does this compare to kind of previous tours in terms of the rooms you're playing and all of that?
I don't know, man. I kind of like hopped around a bit,
Okay.
I've been doing this for so long, like like
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
So I've done, like from the spectrum of like just kind of like warehouse shows, and like
Mm-hmm.
then like really small venues that are like, 50 to 100 cap, and then some of the bigger ones, like we've opened for like with like a great support, like we've
Mm-hmm.
opened I think one of our biggest shows was like freaking, I forgot the venue, what's it called, it's in Brooklyn, but it felt massive. And
Elsewhere? No, bigger than that.
Brooklyn Steel.
Brooklyn Steel, oh, that's
Yeah,
huge. Yeah,
yeah, but I mean we were
that's like
opening,
2000.
so
Yeah, sure.
yeah. And then
Cool.
now for this one I would just say it's like modest mid-size like
Mm-hmm.
venues, which I honestly I love, like having done like a range of shows. The big shows are just so sometimes overwhelming, and
Sure.
they're and even if you like ramp it up like and think of something like that might be quite bigger, like even a festival, like you kind of like lose touch with like that personal touch.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just love kind of like intimate shit, to be
That's
honest, like
great.
in modest
Yeah.
mid-sized stuff, because like you kind of get the time to see the people and make face in some way. And just from a logistic standpoint, it's also, you know, sound is always like a little more catered. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's hard to get a good sound warehouse show
yeah,
or like basement show. I mean, you're not, you know, it's like the vibes can be cool, but yeah, it's usually you know, scraping together whatever kind of sound equipment's in the corner. But
sure.
yeah, so right on. That's great. Yeah, these are great rooms that you're playing. I see you're playing the Lodge Room here in LA. Where are you based?
In Los Angeles.
Ah, down the road. All right, we're
Yeah, how
neighbors.
about you? Where are you based?
I'm in Los Feliz. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Right
Yeah.
on.
What part of town are you in?
I'm like a little south, so I'm in Gardena.
Gardena. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So I want to talk about these. You made a few music videos for this album, and one Fiend shot on location in Japan. I think I noticed as I'm looking at this. Tell me about that one. I mean, that looked like fairly high production, and you're running around the streets there. And like, I mean, even one character is like got a gun out and he's running through a crowded, like busy
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
Like, how did you not get shut down with that?
Yeah, you know, like I said, sometimes we just operate on vibes, and that was completely we just did it. You know, like it's just like if you try to, you know, like just double down and just do the thing and just like put your shaders on, and do it fast and efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
you can get it done. And
how did that come together? Yeah, tell me about the team and how you made that one.
Sure. So yeah, we did like a string of music videos, 3 videos for this album, and I got into contact for the first music video. I got into contact with this amazing, talented director. His name's Pinaki. He's based in Japan. He does a lot of great videos for a lot of cool artists. But yeah, a lot of Japanese Asian artists. And I saw a friend's video and I was like, yo, this is super cool. And I hit up my friend. I was like, yeah, who shot that? And they told me like, oh yeah, it's this guy named Pinaki. You should hang out with him. He's gonna be in the US. I think he's in Los Angeles. He's got a, you know, he's working there right now. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I hit him up, and then we did our first video together. You know, like the vibe was there, and we were like, yeah, let's do something. We didn't know what we're gonna do, but I got this album coming out, and then I have the singles. We should just do a string of single music videos. And and this is just for context, but like the first video, Folktales, we did like a whole miniature set. And he has like his whole production team in like Japan, like, and a lot more infrastructure there, you know, because he's been working out of there and he's based from there. But he came here and he didn't really know anyone. And he was like, when we were like kind of like collaborating and writing a script for it and just throwing ideas in the wall, see what would stick. He was like, he just mentioned like, oh, it'd be so cool to do something with miniatures. And he's like, if we were in Japan, we could do that, but I don't really know how to do that here. You know, I don't know anyone. Yeah. So then I was like, you know what? Let me just figure it out. Like, I always want to, you know, like kind of like, especially for videos, you know, like problem solve in a way where it's like, obviously you're not throwing money at like a wall, but trying to find a medium of like, what's the most creative way I could do this, you know, to save face for budget, but and also like make some cool stuff that like is a little oddball. So I was like, I'll figure it out. So I like for maybe like 2 weeks scoured like Facebook Marketplace and like Craigslist to try to find like, it's called you know, an HOA layout. I mean HO layout, which is like, you know, small kind of like miniature railroads, you know, like Mr. Rogers vibes kind of shit. And then I finally found this dude that he was like selling this huge train layout table. And then I was like, okay, this looks like a good candidate for like a central location kind of thing. And then I checked it out, and he was just this really old dude that was just trying to part with like his family's like whole collection of like miniature stuff. And I basically was like, okay, let's do it. I bought his whole collection for pretty, a good price point, I would say.
Yeah.
And I did that whole thing where we just set up the table and everything and just kind of like bootstrapped it and tried to, take Pinaki's vision and actualize it in a way that, felt comfortable, and tried to meet the middle of not having like a production team and just kind of doing that myself.
Yeah.
So we shot that, and he was like, we were both really happy with it. And then
Where was it? Was that at someone's place? It just seems like a living room somewhere.
it was like at our friend's like printing warehouse.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, we did that, and he was like, "Yo, that was a lot of fun. But we should make a video in Japan. Like, if we could do that here, we could do something way more high production because my whole team is
Sick.
there." So then I was like, "Okay, cool." So I just like went to Japan for maybe like 3 or 4 days, and they kind
Had
of
you
like
been there before?
yeah, we played a show there in 2022 before, and that was like the first time I ever went to Japan.
Cool.
And yeah, so we went to Japan, and then we kind of like had briefly coordinated like a rough idea, and then I kind of just like showed up, and then he kind of took care of the rest, which was kind of awesome. A little strange for uh what I'm used to doing because I'm such a micromanager, and like but I already worked with him for that one video, so I was like, I'm just gonna trust the process because I know that this guy is super talented. He knows what he's doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you casted and got the team together and
Yeah.
storyboarded it and like came up. Did you guys collaborate on the vision and the storyline at all, or was that him?
I gave him like a rough idea of like, oh, let's just like, this is the vibe, and then he kind of ran with that because like the first video was like very like intensely collaborative, where I was like, yeah, we're gonna write it and we're gonna storyboard it, we're gonna make the shots, and then we're even doing the production, like together. Like he was helping me build out that miniature table, and then once we knew that we worked okay with each other, then we did the Japan thing, and that was more like I handed it off to him, and so yeah, we were trying out new things through the process, and it probably that kind of like followed with the third video because it was like very independent production, like, but very invasive collaborative approach for the first one, and then really high production but not much collaborative approach for the second one, and then but really planned out, like on his part. And then the third one we did like let's just grab a bunch of stuff and just we shoot
for a
day
Fool
of
in Love, the puppet one.
Yeah, we shot that in a day of. So like I feel like with the 3 videos, it like kind of covered all the bases for like how to do a video.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. It's super fun. I mean, right. And that makes a lot of sense to team up with a filmmaker, a director, somebody who is invested in like digs what you're doing. So you can do it on a budget. I mean, and like not a full, like not a traditional music video budget, and just kind of do it a DIY indie budget. And but they look great, and they're super fun, and they're very much on point, and like on meets your vibe too.
Yeah, and just even for because like the Fiend video, like I think from a visual standpoint looks like the most high production, but even that it was like kind of like made on a very slim budget in consideration for like what most music videos like kind of like run to, because really it's just like it was a good camera, good locations. Even the cars that we used were just like his friends. And then we just paid the older actor,
DP.
DP, the older actor, and then some lights and stuff. And a lot of the people that were doing DP lights and sound and all that, like, were people that he worked with. So he's already like built that rapport, and he kind of like has. So it was like, for all things considered, still a very cheap video, just like good camera and stuff.
That's awesome. I'm curious how you just how you approach your business, without kind of without a label, without a financier, without you're releasing it totally independently on DistroKid, which you do get 100% of the royalties, but they traditionally don't really give the support that a label would in terms of like advances or anything like that, or tour support or anything like that. Like, how do you approach? Are you making is the revenue from streaming kind of funding everything, or do you have like a sales mechanism? Do you have any other like maybe interesting revenue streams that you tap into with your music that maybe are a little non-traditional, or things that I don't know, we wouldn't know
Sure.
about?
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about like, being in music in this day and age is like there's not a kind of like a monolith of experience for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
us. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when I talk to a lot of other musicians, and since I started doing the Seyerland thing, where I kind of like wanted to put it out through my own music, but like legitimize it in a way where like I'm calling it my own through independent record label, but I also want to legitimize it in a way where I'm actually helping someone else other than myself. So I've been like kind of like reaching out to like local musicians, and that's like where primarily my focus I want to shift to, for that stuff that energy that I can allocate for others is like focus on local musicians that I see kind of the music resonates with me and I see there's something there, but
Mm,
they don't necessarily know how to shift out from local,
yeah,
and just trying to like impart the things that I slightly know, uh, and have learned over 10 years to like help facilitate some of those building blocks that might
sure.
lead to a more sustainable kind of like future career.
Yeah,
But talking through them, and I try to be super transparent with like what my kind of like main uh revenue comes from, and especially when they tell me about their experience, and like some, because musicians always talk to musicians, so they bring up some of other people's experiences, so I know everything's a little different. But yeah, my main revenue primarily comes from streaming, because I do like own 100% of my masters and all that.
mm-hmm.
But talking to a lot of those musicians, that's usually not the case, which
Mm,
is, yeah, it's strange, but I've kind of found my place where like where it comes from streaming, and I do have like supplemental like other things that help with that, like and that's like whether it's like the live shows or like merch or um what is that called, freaking publishing,
mm-hmm.
but I would say, yeah, the lion's share comes from just my main streaming
Yeah.
masters.
And is it, I mean, I'm I was looking at the DSPs, and namely Spotify, since those numbers are public. Um, but right, I mean, it's interesting you bring up, because you own 100% of your masters and you're getting 100% of that revenue.
Mhm.
It's you're probably your take home is probably a lot more than artists who are on labels that might have 10x the numbers that you do, just because you've maintained that ownership, which as you realize, can be super helpful. I'm curious, when you structure these deals, or like now that you're launching this new your own record label for other artists and artists that you want to elevate and lift up, the Seyerland. Tell me about the approach there, and how you work with them, and maybe how you structure these deals.
Yeah, well, Ari, like I'm really I'm like really new to this, so
Okay.
like I think I've realistically only have like a month in,
Oh, wow. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
so
Great. Hey, we're
I'm
breaking
actually,
news here.
yeah, so I'm really trying to just like still figure it out, and I haven't even approached like my first kind of deal, and I
Mm,
think so far we have only just, I want to obviously like pick music that's like resonating with me. I put a little submission thingy on my website, and
Mm-hmm.
I've only just started working with one local musician that I'm like really stoked on his album. He sent me this album. So I am mostly looking in terms of like artist development at the moment, and
Okay.
we're working on his album and trying to like I'm trying to equip him with like a proper kind of like rollout package, because
And this
he's
is Chappis, or how do you say it?
Chappies, yeah,
Chappies, yeah.
Chappies,
Cool.
yeah. So I'm just trying to do that, but we haven't even like approached even putting out the album yet, because we're still you know just talking about how we even want to package it in some way. But realistically, I mean, I only know how to do things in the way that I've done it,
Yeah.
and the way I've done it is like it's not a really glamorous, or like, I don't want to say romantic because it is romantic, but
Right.
it's not a idealized way, like if anything, like it probably is not the way to do it, but yeah, the way I've done it is just like I kind of try to do the best work that I can,
Mm-hmm.
and try to put everything in place that sets you up for success, but
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like I don't really have any like industry like ins in any way. I've always kind of like just thrown it up and tried to hope that people resonate with it, and I've been lucky enough for people to like for a certain demographic to resonate with it.
So tell me, like, I I feel that, and of course, it comes down to the music, and if the music
Yeah,
resonates, it can take on a life of its own, and of course, if the music doesn't resonate, but as I'm sure you know, and you have a lot of musician friends who you probably think are brilliant and amazing, and maybe the music resonates with you, but they haven't found as big of an audience, maybe, or they haven't
yeah.
kind of broken out local, like you said. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Not like on them, but like, is there something like that you've done, maybe marketing wise, or something that you've done in a way like the rollout, or how have you found this audience?
Uh, yeah, I'm sure it's like a number of reasons,
Hmm.
and mind you, I don't think I think I've maybe found a place in like a really modest way. I'm no like like I'm no BTS or something like that, but
There's
uh,
only one BTS.
yeah, but yeah, I've been able to find like some people that enjoy the music and have tried to do it in a way where it's like uh, it feels really independent and organic to me. So I think it's just kind of like doing your due diligence and showing up for the thing and making your time to kind of promote and approaching it in a refreshing way, like from a branding marketing standpoint, and also doing things here and there in coordination with like an album rollout that like is a bit exciting, whether it's like, planning a show, doing merch, planning a tour, or just putting yourself out there, like I feel like especially now it's even harder. Like when I was like really young and I was doing it, I was like really like chronically online. So like I really put myself out there like that. But
Hmm.
even now, I feel like a lot of artists maybe like that are just starting, that are on the local level, there is like a bit of this discourse of like a social media burnout, and they kind of are regurgitating ways to like put themselves out there or promote the work that just kind of follow like a certain model.
Hmm.
And I always want to push artists, or like the artists that I'm working with, to like do it in a refreshing take that feels natural and comfortable to them, but also will give you the most likelihood to set you up for success. So I think that's where like the artist development kind of thing happens. And especially working with this new artist that, our first artist in Seyerland,
Mhm.
I want to like keep his radar on that. And obviously it also helps that if the music is good,
Yeah.
because you can cast so many nets, but like if the river isn't plentiful of fish,
Right.
then it's like, you're just kind of like screaming into the void, so to speak. But
Talk to me about artist development, like specifically when you're maybe working with this artist or even with yourself. What does that mean? What does artist development even mean? How are you approaching it?
yeah, I guess I'm approaching it in terms of like the album, like an album rollout has to feel like it takes a life of its own, and like you're building kind of like who you are as an artist and what your voice is, and like building the world around it.
Hmm.
I feel like looking back at a lot of albums that resonate with me, that it feels so like within living its own world. And I think
Mm,
maybe the thing that might, and it's very abstract, uh but the thing that for me that separates like an artist between like just like anyone else is kind of like finding their own unique voice.
mhm,
So I would I I'm trying to spend time thinking about those like really big ideas, and trying to apply that and like take my experience and like how can I like apply that to someone else,
mm,
so, and it's like a case by case thing. Everyone's voice is a little different, but yeah, I think if you spend some time and like, especially with an album, like understanding what it is saying and what you have to say, and trying to incorporate that with like your rollout of an album, I think
mhm,
you are at least doing the due diligence to like give yourself some time and some
mhm.
faith to like really believe in the work that you've done,
Yeah, so let's like I love that and it's so true. Tell me like specifically with Boy Life, did you approach it that way and say, "All right, this album we're going to create a world." And did you like map it out? You break out the whiteboards? Did you have Pinterest boards? Like specifically, how did you break that down? How did you create the world of Boy Life?
Yeah, it wasn't as self-aware as like
Okay.
I'm there was no whiteboards or anything like that, but at least from like how I usually work when I make an album, it usually follows like a certain trajectory where it's like you kind of like you're like, oh, I want to make an album, and then you write a few songs, and then there's like that one song that sets sets the stage tonally. And
Okay.
I think the first song that did that for me was the first track on the album, which was Boy Life.
The
um
title track, yeah.
yeah, it's like it feels like very intimate, and I was like, the lyrical content is like talking a lot about like youth and transience, and like the coming and the ebbing and flowing of like of life. So
Mhm.
once I wrote that, I kind of kept that in mind for the whole duration of writing the album, where it's like I had those themes of like time and age and maturity versus like youth, and then the rest of the album felt a bit informed to that theme, and then
Mhm.
even to the kind of like the general uh visual aesthetic.
Yeah.
uh it's a lot of like the album is like the baby being eaten by, which was shot by this amazing photographer named Justin Quinnell, and that's like his real life kid. Where like,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Wild.
he's insane photographer from the UK, where he put this really tiny camera in his mouth. It's like a pinhole photography, and then he took a
Oh,
picture
that's
of his
actually.
kid.
Oh, wow, that was real, like, it's his
Yeah,
mouth it's inside his mouth. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it's
Okay.
inside his mouth. Yeah, and even the videos, like there's like kind of like this aesthetic of like very Toy Factory, like Mr. Rogers meets kind of like this slightly unsettling vibe. Yeah, so I feel like doing that where it's like I had the first song of the album kind of inform the rest of the rollout, like felt very naturally for me.
Sure.
And it kind of informed the rest. And I think that's how the building of the world came to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And your aesthetic is on point. Like just looking at what you put out, the content, whether it's on your Instagram, your TikTok, your web, your videos, it definitely feels very cohesive and feels like the music and feels like the album. Is that something like that was conscious when you team up with like photographers or videographers or people making that together? Is just like, do you guys discuss this like visual palette, sonic palette, or is it just kind of less, or is it just more organic, I guess?
It honestly was. I know that probably like for a lot of artists, especially ones that are like working with record labels and all that, like there is like a team that has that in mind.
Right.
But I'd like to think that, like art kind of takes a life of its own and it just like bleeds into, your everyday. And at least from my experience with putting out this album, that was the case where it just kind of like, it fell into it in a very natural way where like the album kind of like was speaking for itself, so to speak, So like a lot of the photo shoots and like a lot of the videos where like it follows that kind of like visual palette, that was just kind of stuff that fell into itself. But also like at least for the videos, I was really interested in doing stuff that like kind of like fell onto the spectrum of like youth and like childlike wonder. But so yeah, it kind of like it wavered between, like different ranges, because I feel like overall the album was strongly speaking for itself,
Yep. Very cool. And then when you kind of, because I know it's not as fun and like cool to talk like marketing or packaging or all of that. And it's just like, it's not really, I know it's not like the artist's vision, but being a kind of a very independent artist where you don't have that team at a label and you still have to, put stuff out online to kind of, promote the record. How was that? Like, who's making these like short form videos that you're putting up there on like TikTok and Instagram, and like, how's that approach?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's like not my favorite conversation.
Of course.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of artists out there that's, typically would say it's not their favorite conversation.
I would say most don't love talk, but we all have to deal with it. And that's it's just the thing. It's just like, it's the world we live in. It's like, if, you throw out an album and like, you don't put any thought behind it or any like videos, photos, resources, marketing, nothing, like no one's going to hear about it. And like no one's going to know about it. And so it's kind of like, this thing was like, yeah, it's not fun. That's not the part we love to do. It's not the part we want to do. And it's like, do we really want to make a video and put it on TikTok? Like, no one like really wants to do that, but it's kind of like a necessary evil, I guess. But so like, how do you balance that? It's like, I know I can tell just as we're talking through this, like you don't love thinking of like really getting into that. And I get it. I totally, most artists don't, you're not alone in that, but you still do have videos on TikTok. Like it'd be one thing if you're like, nope, I don't have Instagram, I don't have TikTok, I don't have YouTube, I don't want any of that stuff. I want the music to speak for itself, and I'm only selling vinyl records at my shows. It'd be like, oh yeah, purist, I totally get it, whatever. Yeah. But you have all of it, so I like, what's and you're running it. So how does that work?
I mean, like, I'm just like kind of running it myself. Like, I don't have like a social media manager. I just put the stuff out, and I do it. But yeah, and I'm sure this is the case for everyone, right? Like my ideal scenario for like being an artist is like, I really wish I could be like, like the Beatles, right? where
Yeah.
it's like you kind of
Right.
just put out albums and like you're not really doing the peripheral stuff, but
Hmm.
like that's like the Beatles, you know, like we have to
Hmm.
understand like as musicians that like range from a spectrum of like different lifestyles that like, you know, we are only just trying to do the work where we can reach that point where we can be, you know, like a Beatles or like a Frank Ocean or like
Hmm.
God knows who else, where it's like they can afford the luxury of just throwing stuff up and they know there's an audience that will like capture that. But for other artists like myself, like we can only hope to do the best work possible and give yourself time to show up for yourself.
Hmm.
So, in the hopes that you can get to that place, right? So, even though it's not my favorite thing to do, it's not my favorite conversation to have, I am realistic and I know I still got to do it. And I know that the social media burnout is real. And also,
Yeah.
like, there's like this conversation of like algorithm dependency and like what the algorithm necessarily likes too. But I think just even just the simple act of giving yourself time to do that and showing up for yourself and also just like giving yourself some slack of like a hey, I made something like that resonates with me that tells my experience. Like I should probably do the due diligence of like, you know, of convincing others that they will love it just the way I believe it in myself. I think if you just
Hmm.
show up for that and do it, and it could, you know, it could look like however big or however small it is. I think the most important thing that is if you do it in a way that's authentic to yourself and
Hmm.
just do the damn thing, you know,
Yeah.
and then you could like maybe sleep at night and hopefully that will something will come out of that. And
Yes.
even if it's not, you know, like necessarily like the most views, like at least you made some like an awesome piece of music and like
Hmm.
you told people like, hey, I made this awesome piece of music and I'm proud of myself in some way, you know.
Absolutely, and exactly, and yeah, you gotta be proud of it. You gotta be able to stand behind it, and you absolutely should be proud of everything that you put out, and you have a great record, and I'm excited to hear how this tour goes. And it's yeah, you've been intentional with your art, and it shows, and authentic with that art, and it definitely shows through. And so yeah, you're doing a great job with it all. Um,
Thanks so much,
so
Ari.
yeah, well, and thank you for chatting with me about all of this, and even diving into the sides of running a music career that's like not as fun to talk about, but we all have to go through. And I know everybody listening really appreciates you breaking that down and those words of wisdom. It's invaluable, and we all need to hear that. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
Yeah. Uh you know what? To me, like making it is like, you know, when I first started, like I was just like a college kid that was like I don't really know what it is that I wanted to do. I was fresh out of high school and I was like I didn't know what I wanted to do and you know being a musician felt a little out of the picture because that's like not my background and I'm sure my parents didn't think that as well.
Hmm.
But my definition of making it is like let's say I like time traveled back and to like my past self when I was like just I didn't know exactly what it was I want to do. I kind of had music on the mind, but I didn't really know like what necessarily was the path to do that.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
still, you know, if you're asking me presently, because you know we're human and we're
Yeah.
artists and we always want something more. That like
Hmm.
if you're asking me right now, I'd be like, no, there's still more work to do. Like I feel like I haven't, you know, there's that imposter syndrome of like I feel like I haven't made it.
Hmm.
But realistically, if I were like to time travel to my past self and then like meet my past self, I know for like 100% a fact that like my past self would be like, dude, we're doing it. So I think
Hell yeah.
I think that's like my definition of like making it is like,
Hmm.
are you proud of like what you've accomplished, even though there's so much more to accomplish. And, you're always going to try to take that time to continuously do the work and show up for yourself. But you got to take your wins for what they are. So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
my definition.
Amazing. Michael, there. Thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, Ari.
Today's episode was edited by Ari Davids with music by Grassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.